Welcome to the FitnessFest podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia, and I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. We have a special episode for you. We have Aimee Nicotera. She was a recent FitnessFest presenter, a sponsor. She came out to Arizona, brought her great education, her E5 collective. And today in this episode, she's going to talk about her history, give some advice, and all that great stuff in between. So first, Aimee, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, the first question that everybody gets, every guest on the podcast gets asked, what is your story in the fitness industry? Can you give us a little background on Aimee before you started your E5 collective?
Yeah, sure. I have been in the industry for 27 years. So I started teaching group fitness when I was 17. And some people wonder, how did that start? And I'll just share a quick story. I was 16 and I was nannying with a friend of my mom's for the summer. And I was at that point in life where every person is kind of like, what do I want to do when I grow up? I don't know. And the woman I was working for said, you'd be a great aerobics instructor. And I was kind of like, really? Why? And what's that? And so she said, well, you love to work out. You have great energy. And I think you'd be really good at it. So that was kind of my introduction to aerobics in 1992. And I started taking classes and I started taking step aerobics, was huge at that point in time. And I liked it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take an official instructor training course from a woman who had a small studio locally in upstate New York. Her name is Judy Terrell, one of my great mentors. She's still in the business today. And I was able to learn everything from musicality to a basic overview of anatomy and physiology to how to build a class. And basically, that was my start. I took my AFA certification in 1993. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was that. And got started. So I started teaching group fitness. After I got that certification, I just went around to local clubs and asked people, do you need instructors? I started doing demos and I got myself a whole bunch of little jobs. And it was great because I was able to teach classes and go to college at the same time locally. And it was a great little schedule. So that's really how I got my start. After teaching group, I decided I wanted to do some personal training. So I took a personal training certification. I started training a few different clients. And along the way, I've done several different jobs, or I've had several different positions in the health and fitness industry. But all the while, I have always taught group fitness on the side and or trained personal clients on the side as well. I can tell you a little bit about some of the different jobs that I've had. Would that be entertaining, Tyler?
Let's save that for the second question, because there's one point that I want to go back to in the beginning, which you started at a young age, and I started at a young age as well in the fitness industry. And one of the things that I feel like I get asked about is public speaking and being able to be in front of large crowds. Did you find that starting at a young age that was a trouble, or did you have to work on it, or did it just come naturally?
You know, I think it came naturally to a certain degree, but I was also raised in a family where we did different activities where, like, I was involved in our church and we did some public speaking. So it wasn't foreign to me. And in addition, I had the opportunity to go to a great private girls' school for my middle school and high school experience. And we were taught girls can do anything they want to. So I didn't really think anything differently. I was of the mindset, like, I didn't even think I couldn't do it. I just assumed I could. So also, I felt very prepared from the course that I took, and I practiced my booty off. I practiced a lot. And so I think together with the support in my work that I put in and the great mentors around me, I was able to kind of rise to the occasion and do fairly well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And that kind of goes into my follow-up question, that with being young and in the fitness industry, and this is just based off of my experience, I feel like there's a little bit of a stigma attached to it. I worked in a very large facility when I was 18. I started at 18, and there was 40 plus trainers in there, a lot of them full timers, that this is their main gig. It was a high-end club in a very bougie, I'll call it, area in Southern California, and it was tough, and there was almost a stigma attached to, oh, you don't know, well, you don't know as much as I do, or even though you probably have the same certification, and it's one of those things where you have to deal with those. Do you feel like your preparation in the school and your we'll call your inner circle really helped out with that part of being a young fitness instructor?
Yeah, that's interesting that was your experience, because mine actually is slightly different. Since I was mainly teaching group fitness, people were really excited about someone new. And some of the people that had been there for years, I remember this one guy, super awesome guy, very popular, but he taught literally the same step class for like 10 years and it was packed, but it was the same class, and people just pretty much came to hear his story and what his life was, what was happening in his life, like get the latest. So I think in my case, people welcomed a little breath of fresh air, but there was some tough people in the crowd you had to win over. And I'm definitely thankful for my mentors and the support I had and the encouragement I had to kind of go over that hump. When I did go to school, my schooling trajectory is a little different. I did 2 years first because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And I took courses that I thought would support my fitness business, which was like anatomy and physiology and psychology and marketing, things like that. And I got a 2-year degree. And after I got that 2-year degree with my certifications, I was actually able to get a corporate fitness position with a company at the time. And it was a contract that they had with GE. And it was one of the GE sites where they designed, I think it was about 80% of the things that GE designed were like brought to life at this site. And so we were the corporate fitness facility for this GE place. And so we had a ton of like brilliant people who would come and work out. We were their on-site, wellness experience. And I was a fitness specialist. So at that time, it was great because it was just a small crew of us running this kind of small gym. I had group fitness down, so I was able to do really well at that. And it was a really good opportunity for me to learn fitness testing and exercise testing, exercise prescription. At that time, I took a course with ACSM. It was like a prep course at the time to be one of their health fitness specialists, they called it at the time. Now it's an exercise physiologist. But I did that during that time. So I was able, my position wasn't in a commercial setting, which I can understand from your perspective probably felt a little bit more, maybe you felt more pressure, or there were more, it was a different vibe. Here I'm at a corporate fitness facility with a bunch of nerdy guys and women, brilliant, who can't tell their left foot from their right, but they can design a freaking turbine engine or whatever they're doing, right? So for me, that job was great because we were supposed to bring the fun, and that's what I was good at. And we made little programs up, and we got to be the highlight of other people's day. So it wasn't really competitive in that way that you might have in a commercial setting. So before I comment about corporate and like corporate wellness, there's a comment I want to make because it's just a small little joke about when I've had clients that are really, really smart clients. And I used to have one that he would literally go like fact check what I'm telling him. He was a super smart guy. You could tell that he was just always critically thinking about everything in his head. And we would talk about an exercise, the muscles being worked, how it can benefit him. And I could tell like in his head, he's like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to Google this and I'm going to make sure. And like, even though those are not typically the fun clients, I feel like it had made me just be on my toes more, that I just had to be prepared. But in terms of corporate wellness, it's great that you brought that up because I feel like that's one area that a lot of fit pros don't quite know about, but it's a great opportunity. I don't want to say it's very different, but it is different than commercial fitness. You are just how you mentioned, you are part of those people's lives to brighten up their day. They're either sitting or they're working on something very intense, not dealing with health or wellness, and the times that they get to come into your facility and work with you, it's a game changer for them. And I had the privilege of, when I was in my undergrad, we had to do corporate wellness, and
a popular site that a lot of people went to was with Boeing. And it's just a very different feeling. There's times where it's very quiet. And then all of a sudden there's this huge rush during lunch where they're all just running and do their exercise. And there's other times where you're working on programs that will challenge them, to keep them thinking about exercise, things like that. But it is very different, but it's a good experience. And for a lot of people, it's a full-time job, which you don't really hear about often in the fitness industry, to be able to have a full-time position. So great that we're talking about corporate wellness.
Yeah, I actually think they're great gigs. I mean, now, unfortunately, they don't really pay that well. So it's a really nice full-time position, depending on which company it is and the kind of setup that you have. In general, I've noticed, just kind of looking around, even lately over the past couple of years, that the pay is not quite as high as maybe you might want it to be or think it would be. But it is really great because you're doing different things. You're not necessarily fighting to sell the package.
Yeah.
You know, you're going up and designing stretch breaks for people who are in meetings, right?
Yeah.
You learn how to work the crowd. You learn all these different skills that I think just really transfer well to whatever you decide to do afterwards. Yeah. And it was a really good experience for me.
Yeah. And to kind of add on to what you mentioned about the pay, but there are a lot of benefits, is that there's positions for everybody in the fitness industry. You don't have to be buckled down to, I have to work in a commercial setting, that you have to sell your packages. You have to hit your targets, all that kind of high pressure environment where people find themselves leaving after a certain period, because to be honest, it doesn't work for everybody that way, but there are other options out there. And that's really a great part of this podcast in general, the FitnessFest podcast, is that we talk about different areas of the fitness industry that hopefully open up the minds of everybody that's listening. Like, oh, wow, like I never thought about that. I could go look into that in my area, and it hopefully provides more options, that it just expands that the health and fitness industry just isn't being a personal trainer or being a Group X instructor.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is, you know, a lot of these companies, they used to contract out to other corporations, and sometimes they still do, but you could work. I worked at a factory for Owens Corning, who makes insulation, like the Pink Panther insulation. I was a wellness director at a factory, contracted out for another company. But I also worked in a hospital setting. So it's kind of really interesting, the different kind of people that you can touch or have, you know, the ability to kind of change their life. They're all facing different things, whether it's repetitive motion injuries, or if it's just like, you know, on their feet for 12-hour shifts, can't find the time to work out. So I would say corporate wellness, you know, it might look different, but most companies have some sort of wellness program or initiative at their site, and it can be very different. So like you said, I'll just echo that. Great option. Look into it if you haven't, if you think it might be a good fit for you. Yeah,
I like that. I like that a lot. Transitioning a little bit to getting us closer to talking about your E5 Collective and your virtual studio that you're working on now. With all the jobs that you've had, I don't want to make it seem like it's a very long list, maybe there might be, but with all these different stops that you've had in the fitness industry, what do you feel like has really helped you, or what stop do you feel really helped you with getting ready for starting your own business, going out on your own and really building your own career?
Well, I think like most fit pros, I feel like we've got a little bit of a hustler in us. And so most of us have some different gigs going on at the same time. And I will say, you know, for the past 27 years, I've always taught somewhere. I might have taken a 6-month break one time or 2 times, but I've always taught classes somewhere. I've typically always had at least one client. And while I was doing that, I had other full-time jobs, right? So I would say, you know, corporate fitness was great. I learned a lot. I ended up going back to school. I have my undergrad in nutrition science and my master's in health education. And when I went for my master's, at the end of my nutrition degree, there was like a fork in the road. I could do one more year and study to become a registered dietitian, or I could pursue my master's. And the advantage of my master's was I was working full time and I could go to school and work full time at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other option I couldn't. So that was one of the reasons I made that decision. But I ended up going to school for health education with a focus on school, like education as in to being a health teacher in a school. So I taught in New York State for a year and a half. It was different levels, middle school and high school health. And then I lived in Los Angeles for 7 years and I taught in South Central LA. I taught health. I taught life skills. I taught nutrition. We had a huge culinary kitchen in that school. I taught whatever they needed me to teach. And even though I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do there and there's no framework, okay, we're going to make something up. And so I would get out a book and I'd create a curriculum. So I feel like that school experience of high school, having 40 little people from South Central LA, everything that is coming to mind is true. They're in your class. And me being able to lay them down, 40 kids in Shavasana for a little stress management lesson was amazing. And I really feel like that experience taught me how to, if you can win a high school kid over, you know how to work the crowd, right?
Yeah.
You also being on your toes about how to just de-escalate conflict, how to engage people, in addition to just from a teacher perspective, how to be on and giving day after day. Teaching is no joke. If people are so hard on teachers, they have no idea what it's like to just give every day to a large crowd of people that generally don't want to be there. But also keeping me on my toes and being able to pivot and, make changes without freaking out and kind of go with the flow and get the job done and really give my best every day. So I think that kind of school setting really primed me for anything else I do in life. I think that was one of my most challenging and rewarding jobs ever. It taught me everything. Every skill I had or even have now, I feel like was a little bit touched in that experience. And just to kind of further that idea about being able to pivot and change, that's what most of us have had to do in the last year and a half or two, right? Yeah. So I made a quick, hard pivot to losing my job to creating my own virtual studio, making it not just a side hustle, but all right, I'm not going to work for a full-time, a real company, a fitness company, working for them, creating programming or whatever. I'm going to, start on my own, start creating everything for me. How can I pivot? I got to be willing to learn. I don't know how to do online studio. I don't know how to hook all this tech up. How am I going to learn it? Okay. I Google, how do I set this blah, blah, blah thing up, right? And I call people I know. And it just teaches, I feel like that teaching experience really helped me to be humble. Get over yourself if you think you're somebody, because those 40 kids are going to let you know that you're not anybody. And they all have a harder life than you do, for real. And you should just be grateful that you're waking up every day. So that really taught me, I can do it. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. All these things that I helped coach these inner city kids to do, who went on to be awesome people, take your own advice and you do it. So I would say that job really influenced me and prepared me for all the stuff that came after that, including this experience of starting my own studio and creating my own online course.
Yeah, I bet. And I briefly just want to touch on this experience with adolescent fitness, exercise, mental health, just because I only had a very small taste of working with a school system. It was mostly basically just a contract that I did strength and conditioning for a baseball team for a period of time. And so very, very small. But even in that experience, I had to deal with the red tape, the coach, the baseball coach. He had to deal with it just to even get me to be able to come on campus and to be able to train these athletes and provide them sound strength and conditioning. And in that experience, you're 100% right. If you can work the crowd, if you can get them to buy in, because these people, these kids, they see a lot and they're not dumb. They know what goes on. And if you can win them over, it just shows what the work that you're doing, it's working, and how positive it can be and how you can impact them. And so the question that I have for you is, with working in different states, having that part of your, we'll call it your career path, and having that experience, what do you feel like is one of the biggest obstacles that a lot of children face with getting, say, knowledge in exercise and being able to have a consistent program? What do you think is one of the biggest issues they face?
Great question. I think there is a lot of different ways to answer that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we do as Fit Pros and anyone in our industry is we assume that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Right? We assume people know what junk food is.
Yeah.
We assume people know what they're not really supposed to eat and what they should eat.
Yep.
We assume they know, like, hey, don't you know what it means to exercise every day or move your body? And, that experience, and just, the more I get to know different people in different walks of life, is that people don't know. You can be a corporate executive and really good at what you do and have no idea what to do in your kitchen. And there are parents who have children who have no idea that they are doing their kids a disservice by serving them soda and like Gatorades and hot Cheetos and whatever else. They don't know. And so I think we really have to realize that most America, even though it's $1 billion business, the people who take the time to learn things or kind of know what's the right way to get healthier, it's not the majority still. And we might wonder, like, how the heck can that be? But it's because we're not reaching the people that really need to know. And part of it is, I think, just economic opportunity, like who has access to gyms. Those kids in South Central there weren't gyms in the neighborhood, So I think giving people the opportunity for low cost exercise or fitness experiences, making fitness experiences available in parks and public places, having, there's a whole movement for more open spaces in urban areas with playgrounds and outdoor spaces. I think having that stuff available to help just people have the opportunity to move more.
Yeah.
I think kids do fundamentally want to play. I mean, I've just done some research, and one of the strongest drivers of human behavior, according to the research, is play.
Yeah.
And that means adults too. And people do generally just want to have a good time. So if we can create experiences that, make moving enjoyable, people are more likely to stick with it. And in the school setting, unfortunately, there's so much red tape and people have to pass this test, where teachers don't have time to just be everything to the child. And we're hard on teachers, I think,
I agree.
We're not the parents. The parents have to do stuff too. And I know there's parents working 2 to 3 jobs, and who has the time to work out, and who knows what a healthy choice is when you're trying to get breakfast out the door. So I think there are a lot of challenges, but I think the more kind of grassroots we can get, or the more active we can become in our own communities or other communities that we might have relationships with for whatever reason. And, I don't think people should necessarily give away their services, but I do think there's a time and a place to, give back and really kind of build the community up. So I didn't really answer your question exactly, but I think those are some barriers. I think people want to move.
Yeah.
I think they just, a lot of people don't really know what to do. And and the people that know what to do and aren't doing it are not the ones that need it the most, because they know what to do and they can do it. They can help themselves, and they've got a motivation issue, which I'm not saying that's not important, but I don't know.
I like that answer a lot, actually. And it really goes along with how I even look at business in general, in terms of providing people with the resources to be successful. And I think that in life, we often just want to say, oh, they don't know what they're doing. And I feel like people want to say, oh, like this is a generational issue. Oh, this is an age issue. Or they want to point at those things where maybe they weren't given the tools to be successful in that area. And I think you're 100% right that people often, they don't know how to look stuff up, or they didn't have that information. So why is it their fault that they don't know how to?
Or they don't know how to start.
Exactly.
Right?
And the the minority in this is exactly what you mentioned, that some people don't know how to search this kind of stuff, where to look for this stuff. There's a lot of information out there. And so I think that starting that quest to a healthier life, there's a lot of issues. And then one of the pieces of research that I've come across in my years that I really am a big fan of, and I reference it in a lot of different papers that I've written, it has to do with adolescent fitness, but teaching the fundamentals. And this research study, it was out of Australia, and it basically followed kids in middle school. And it showed that if you could teach kids the fundamentals of kicking, jumping, running, skipping, I think throwing, I forgot the other fundamental skills in there, but it just showed that they had a higher chance of exercise in the future. So if we aren't giving the kids the ability to learn these fundamental items, they're not going to exercise in the future. They're going to have signs of poor body image, mental health issues, things along those lines that we see here and there. But if we can give them the tools to succeed, then they'll have a higher chance in that area. So it's just something to kind of open people's minds about. And I know that that's not what this podcast episode's about, but I just found it very fascinating when you're talking about that part of your life, those experiences. And I just wanted to pick your brain on that specific question there.
Yeah, I think, just to piggyback off of that, some of us get so distracted on making the fit fitter and just creating more things that are going to entertain people that already have the motivation and the means to work out or to move or to eat better, where really, and I don't have the answer. And I don't know what the answer is exactly, but I'm trying different things, and I think we should all try different things. But how do we reach the people that aren't there yet? Yeah. And I think this is a great learning for me, switching over to this virtual studio. I have people working out with me on my virtual studio who have never been a gym member. Now, to me, that sounds absurd, right? Like, what do you mean? You never went to a gym? And it wasn't even on their radar to do it. They've never exercised regularly before, ever. And they just came to me because they were kind of a friend who said, well, I'll do it if you do it. And now their world has changed. So it just lets us know that there's a lot of people out there who need us, or who need somebody in their life to, share with them how they can move and feel better and be better. And you don't know what you're missing if you've never had it. Yep. So I think what an opportunity we have to share and really come up with creative ways to do that.
Oh yeah. And I think it was somebody that, I think you're going on their podcast pretty soon, Kelly Coulter. She was talking about the majority of people have never been to a gym or don't exercise. And that is really the population to look at. How can you crack that in? I don't think anybody has the answer to that. It's that one is a ever-changing Rubik's Cube of how can you get to that audience. But this is a good transition here into what you're doing now with E5 Collective and your virtual studio. Can you explain, that's two parts here, but can you explain those for the listeners?
Sure. E5 Collective actually came from the conversation that we're just having. One of the big reasons why I created it, but it's a new fitness format. The E stands for explore, and the 5 represents the 5 segments of the class. And the 5 segments of the session are named for action words. So they are prepare, endure, engage, push, and recover. So these are actions that we bring to life through some specific physical movement strategies and training techniques. And these are actions that if we take, we'll be more fit and healthy, but they actually impact every aspect of our entire life. So in the creation of this fitness format, my whole thing was, what about trainers and instructors and coaches who don't have a brick and mortar facility to go to, right? How can we help them, with their work and, give them more tools so that they can be really adaptable and flexible in how they bring fitness to people? But also, can this format easily be put into schools, into boys and girls clubs, into the parks? Could a trainer just do this in where there's minimal equipment? So the whole premise is minimal equipment and simple methods. And so it's basically a structure, and you use one type of equipment during the workout, and that equipment is going to be whatever you have. my whole thing is I want to meet a trainer, an instructor, and a coach where they are with what they have. So they don't have to spend a ton of money to get equipment to lug around to somewhere. Just use what you have. You can do something awesome with like mini loop bands or med balls that you have or whatever. So the fitness program is an online course that you can be trained in if you're an instructor. It's approved for CECs from a variety of industry organizations. You take the training online. And then if you decide it's your jam and it's something that you really kind of feel like it resonates with you, then you can subscribe. And basically a subscription gets you monthly programming for this 45-minute session. In addition to partner drills and group games, there's a lot of options for how you roll out your session. But the whole idea is that you're just going to have a bunch of tools, like you just said, giving trainers the resources to be able to meet people, not necessarily in the gym, but in the park and in the gymnasium after school through the rec program in your neighborhood. That's really what E5 is about. It's in the name collective is kind of just that. Like, can we rise up? I know it's a hugely naive, altruistic view of the world, but I really feel like together we can actually reach these people that don't even go to the gyms, right? It's just, that's just one avenue, but we can bring some really cool, innovative training strategies that are effective and just inspiring and empowering to people anywhere. And my idea is that this format might help a trainer to be able to do that easier.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And while hearing you talk about it, I mean, I feel like it just opened so many ideas in my head and how great it is. But for this podcast, what I want to focus on is actually some of the steps that you took to get there, because as we've outlined in this episode so far, you've had different steps, health and fitness and physical education, but none of those involve, let's say, website development or branding. And those are big pieces of a business. Can you give some advice or even just talk about where you started in that path and growing your business in that area?
Well, like we kind of discussed before, previously in the same conversation, is how you kind of learn skills along the way, and you can, and it's great because we're going to use those with whatever we do next, right? So in my journey throughout the health and fitness world, I have created courses or had a part in creating courses and training packages for other companies. So I kind of knew how to do it. I didn't really know how to do it myself, but I knew what the whole big idea was. So I had this kind of idea in my mind. I did all the research. I wrote out what I wanted to do. I kind of mapped it out. I talked about it with, a few people and friends, and I basically decided to write a script. I did research on, I knew I wanted it to be an online course because I wanted it to be legit and credible and have some real science behind it and be able to really level up some group activity. I think sometimes people still feel like, oh, it's group fitness. And sometimes in gyms, group fitness and PT worlds live in silos and they each talk bad about each other, but they can actually really help each other if they just stop arguing. Anyways, so I really wanted to have some smart programming for group and make it really easy for instructors to, use as a resource. So I did research on how I wanted my online course to look. I took a bunch of online courses. I saw, how they were. I decided what I wanted mine to look like and what I didn't want to do, knowing I'm going to be servicing the adult learner and knowing that I'm doing it myself and my budget is little. Right? So how can I do it the best possible way and make it look as professional as possible and still get everything that I wanted to into that course? So I, like I said before, I Googled how to write an online course, how to film myself with a teleprompter. How do you do a teleprompter without, a big computer? So I found all that out, and there are ways to do everything yourself. And so it was a challenge, and I literally didn't know what I was doing. It took me a long time, but I figured it out, just like everybody can figure out anything if they just take the time to, do it. And that's the hard part. It's just buckling down and staying patient and doing it. And I chose an online learning management system that was great and user-friendly and had a great support staff. So I was able to get support as I created my course and literally put the course, like I edited it using iMovie. I didn't do anything super fancy, but I actually put the course on the platform, and the people that I worked with and still work with are awesome and they respond super quick. So that's always great. Very supportive. So I did that. I think you just have to decide what your idea is going to be, organize your thoughts. It's going to take some work and time and research. And it's not something you're just going to be able to throw out together. And once you've got that product, I think, you have to build a website to support it, and you have to get some marketing around it. And I think you have to let your ego go, and people have to admit that they don't have to be good at everything. And it's really time efficient and cost effective to hire good people that know what they're doing and just let them do their job and help you. So I would say team up with people who, might know how to build a website and actually know how to brand you across the board and really start to create something bigger. And I think it's super important because even, you opened the conversation with how I went to FitnessFest. I remember my conversation with Janice. I had not met her before, though I had heard of her. She went to my website, E5 Collective, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you look pretty legit." Like, she didn't really know me. She knew maybe of me, but that's it. And she shared a story. She was planning for some party and the people didn't even have a website. And she was like, "What? I can't hire you." So you got to look like you have your stuff together. So I think it's really important to, when it comes to branding, get some people who know what they're doing and let them help you.
I love it. And I've told you this before. Love your branding, and I love how you put it across the board. And there's a theme, a part of it, with growing your business and having these items a part of it. Exactly what you said. It makes you look legit. That when people, a potential customer, come to your website, they see you online, like, "Oh wow, like this is something that I want to invest my money in, that I feel comfortable paying hundreds of dollars towards to." Whether it's going to your class or whether it's taking your course, these are things that people look for. And it's one of those things where sometimes I see it with other businesses. I'm just like, what are these people doing? How can you teach instructors or teach individuals when you're not following some of the basic items? And I don't want to get too down that line because then I'm going to start venting, but with your business, E5 Collective, and your virtual studio, what do you feel like was the biggest challenge for you to overcome in the last year?
I actually think, just videotaping it myself, or recording the whole course myself, like figuring out all of that tech stuff, putting it together. I mean, from actually learning how to time a PowerPoint slide and put it into a video and do voiceovers and edit audio and video separately. I just had no idea. I'd never did that before. And so that was a really big challenge for me, to just take on a totally new, thing and actually have to just learn it. So I think that was a big challenge. And of course now, I have it up and I've got all these beautiful things in place, and now I need to sell the sucker. So that's a big challenge.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big challenge. I like what you mentioned though, with learning those items, because it's what we've talked about before, is that some people don't even take those steps. They don't take the steps to learn how to do that. And you've mentioned how you just go on Google and you search it, you find something. My thing that I do is I go on YouTube and I search it, and I find something even before we started recording this and before Aimee jumped on. I was actually on YouTube and I was looking up how to fix something on my car. And those are things that it's outside of your comfort zone, but you figure it out and you learn across it, and then you just keep building on that. And go ahead.
Can I just interrupt real quick? There's a mutual friend, Petra, Kobler, who is a friend of FitnessFest as well. And she has a great quote, and I don't know if it's her quote, but she says it a lot, or somebody famous said it once, but it's imperfect action is better than no action. So I think, like you're explaining right now, sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, we can't even do it right. Why do it at all? So we just sit there, but just do it. It doesn't have to be like perfect.
Yeah.
But you can try, and you'll probably be able to fix your car, No guarantees it might not break next week, but today you probably could fix it. And that's a step in the right direction.
Oh, yeah. Side note, I can fix my car. But
no, I never doubted.
That's one of my newer skill sets, I'll say. But despite having a full background in exercise science, I can fix cars. No big deal. We're talking about the whole growth mindset and getting yourself out of your comfort zone. I always think about the process and the learning experience throughout it, that you learn something, and exactly what you said, you try it, you put something out there, but then you just keep learning more. And I think that is something that for myself, I can tell you exactly what the first website that I ever built, what it looks like, what it was built on, and how bad it looked. And each time though, you get better, you try something new, you move on from that first platform, you move to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, and you keep learning, and you grow and you grow and you grow. But you just got to take those steps. And I think that goes across exercise, business, life in general. So a lot of good stuff in there that anybody can take home from it. Aimee, before we sign off, can you share with the listeners where they can find information about E5 Collective, your virtual gym, or even just finding you online?
Yes. Well, it's super simple. It's actually the letter E, the number 5, E5 Collective, all smushed together.com, e5collective.com. You can find me, you can access me there. You'll find everything about E5. You can just go to my personal website, aimeenicotera.com as well, but they're both great, and they support each other.
I love it. I love it. Great episode. Really enjoyed hearing more in depth about your career, your stops, all that kind of stuff. Thank you again for coming on the FitnessFest podcast.
Thank you for having me.